Hello and welcome to another installment of Goddess Keys. Kick back, relax, more of a podcast listening session slash transmission. We're in a serious portal right now. And I don't mean serious as in SERIOUS. I mean like serious as in SIRIUS. I don't know why that's funny to me. I just had to be clear. So yeah, there's a very prominent frequency related to Sirius happening. We're in that portal. Some refer to it as the Lionsgate portal. Lionsgate, that sort of frequency, is a little bit of a newer term. I grew up in the New Age spiritual community, and I didn't really learn about Lionsgate. It wasn't until that I specifically paid attention to it was like around 2020. We were chatting about it in one of the sessions on Black Diamond on Patreon, and one of the members on there said that she heard about it a little earlier, like in 2012, but still, it's a relatively early portal. Like, it's like not like it's kind of a new thing. But Sirius, this idea of Sirius and this portal of late July being a really important time for the rising of Sirius is pretty ancient. It's been going on for a bit. And I'm always interested in looking at the inversion of things. So Sirius is known as being the dog star. But if you invert that, if you reverse the letters, and it's always like a good thing to try to see if you can reverse letters. But if you reverse the letters of God, or if you reverse the letters of dog, it becomes God. So on one hand, yeah, Sirius is the dog star. But on another hand, Sirius is the God star. So this is an opportune time to connect with your goddess consciousness. And I've been tapping into a frequency of godhood beyond godhood. And this came about for me with connecting with parthiogenic creatrix codes, connecting with the frequencies of the parthiogenic goddess, the goddess who is able to seed herself from herself, seed life, seed creation from herself. And so I want to take a moment right now to open up the portal for energies of the parthiogenic creatrix to come through into this conversation. Godhood beyond godhood. Because a lot of the gods that we have seen being put on a pedestal, they've gone through several different reboots. They've gone through several different rewrites. And to be quite honest, gods are based upon mythology. Someone created the storyline for these gods. And when you think of it in that way, the god, the mythology itself is not where the power is. It is the being who created the mythology. That is where the power is. When you are able to bring forth a story into the collective consciousness and embed these stories within the collective consciousness, and then weave these stories into the fabric of people's lives, that is a God status. Some beings have that within in what we're calling the universe right now. And these beings have elevated themselves as being gods. And there's absolutely, I'm all about it. I'm all about connecting with your godhood, connecting with your creative consciousness, your creator consciousness. And yet what I'm not cool with, and what is coming to a rapid decline and end and destruction in the cosmos, is the gatekeeping of creativity and imagination, because that is where the God power is. Any being who attempts to gatekeep another being's ability to create, their demise is imminent. Yo, that's coming from the Parthiogenic goddess. I just opened up a portal for the Parthiogenic goddess, and that's what came through. Woo, I wasn't expecting all that. Okay. All right. The mother, the creational goddess, ain't nothing to play with. She ain't for play. That's why they tried to bury her. They buried her as best as they could. 13 folks in the chat. My camera's off, y'all. I'm in bonnet time right now. I got the bonnet on. I know I'm not the type of creator that's gonna come on screen with the bonnet. I'm not saying I'll never be that type, but it definitely ain't gonna be tonight. So we chilling over here. We're in bonnet time, and we're discussing love and what love is. I don't know if we fully, as a collective, understand what love is, because there's been so much gaslighting that's been done. Because a huge part of love is creation, imagination, the ability to birth things into existence. And yet, what happens when your imagination and your creativity is suppressed? Do you know love? Are you in a society that supports your ability to love, to truly love? What we're taught about in terms of what love is, as being Valentine's, getting flowers, going on dates, all that stuff, that's an aspect of love, but it's a fragmented aspect of love. I want to call in the frequencies of a builder god known as Ptah. I spoke about him recently in another live. He is known as being the patron deity of craftsmen and builders. It's a very Masonic frequency, Ptah. Really, he's Inky. He's the Anunnaki god known as Inky. That's been rebooted several times. But here's the thing about Ptah. Ptah built the world, as the legend goes. Now, of course, he's been rebooted, okay, because we know that creation started with the Parthiogenic goddess, but let's just go with it for a minute. Ptah built the world with the power of his heart and the power of his voice, his words. Love is a builder frequency. But what happens when you are in conditions, when you are in a society that discourages you from building the life that you truly want to live? Are you able to love in those conditions? We got to have a real conversation about this. So we're going to be bringing in a lot of different materials today. I'm not sure how long I'm going to be on. I'm not even going to give it a time limit. We're just going to flow, and we're going to get the message out. And when we end is when we end. So let's start with the definition or the etymology of love, which is, this has been difficult to find, to pin down, because even when I get to the etymology, it'll just say love again. So it's like, well, what is love really? What's the basis that we are perceiving love on this planet? So I'm not quite happy with the etymologies that I pulled. And whenever I pull an etymology on a word and it's not clear, that's always like an alarm bell that goes off, that there's something that's being hidden, or that there's something that's being divided. But we're going to go with the etymology that I was able to find. So love stems from the Old English word known as lufu, which goes into friendliness, deep attachment, affection, care, and love. It's also known as something that pleases and is agreeable. It's also something about cherishing and holding something as dear. Also valuable, precious or cherished, costly or expensive. That was interesting. Costly or expensive. Love is costly or expensive. You know, a lot of times we've heard about money not being a part of what love is, material possessions not being about what love is. And yet, one of the root words that I was able to find on love was costly or expensive. It's kind of interesting. Love is a 4-letter word. You know, other 4-letter words are known as being curses, curse words, words that you're not supposed to say. And yet love is a 4-letter word. Another thing that's a 4-letter word is the frequency of the tetragrammaton. I just recently posted a subliminal about this. Or Yahweh, the initials of Yahweh, which is YHWH. Yod He Wah He. Okay, so we're going to go back to Yahweh in a bit. I am pulling some quotes. We're going to go into 3 different religious texts in this particular download. We're going to go into some texts related to Judaism, Christianity, as well as Islam. Why? Why can't I just pick a lane? Why, should I just pick a lane and not be jumping around? You know, if you've been following me on the Goddess Keys, or if you've been looking at the content or tapping into the content, you've seen a lot of different frequencies on my platform. I definitely don't stay in my lane on the Goddess Keys. I be doing a lot of different stuff. This is how we roll over here. We multidimensional with it. We partheogenic with it. So we can see the code in multiple different belief systems, no matter where in the world they're located, no matter what consciousness they're birthed from. One way I see love is the ability to find common ground in many, many different perspectives, because truly, that's how the code of the simulation has been created. To be quite honest, these 3 religions that we're going to go over in today's installment were birthed from the same consciousness. We'll call them the Anunnaki. We have the big 3 in the Anunnaki. We have our Enki, our Enlil, as well as our Anu. But the Anunnaki were not the original creators, because even though folks who study the Anunnaki, me included, will usually refer to the Enuma Elish, which is known as being a very ancient text, a very ancient spiritual text, kind of one of the oldest you can find. But the Enuma Elish was edited. There are some glaring errors, some glaring oversights in the Enuma Elish. Some goddesses were written out and rewritten. This is why godhood beyond godhood. Because you're going to come across on your journey, on your path to consciousness evolution, consciousness expansion, you're going to come across beings who elevate themselves, puff themselves up to be the be-all, the end-all, the creator of all things. And if you accept that, at that frequency, they are your God. But what happens if your origin is prior to them? That could be problematic for them and for you. Problematic for them because you outrank them. The same big 3. The same big old gods that are supposed to have created humanity. What if your legacy extends beyond them, before them? What if your legacy seeded them? That's your problem too if you don't know it. Your ignorance to your origin is your entrapment. This is why the Enuma Elish was written in the way that it was, with this glaring oversight. So we're going to bring in the frequencies of Namu into the mix, who was known as a primordial parthenogenic goddess. See, they want to give us Tiamat. You know, I was on the Tiamat program for a bit. A lot of us are. A lot of beings who rock with the goddess keys. Y'all have been on the Tiamat program. They wrote your fracturing into the Enuma Elish. They wrote the fracturing of the divine feminine into the Enuma Elish. The first way the Enuma Elish starts is with the dividing of the goddess, the dividing of Tiamat. And they lied to you. They told you that Tiamat, that the original primordial goddess, had a counterpart. That Tiamat was the seawater, the salt water, and that her counterpart, Abzu, was the fresh water. They lied to you and told you about this division between Tiamat and her male counterpart, and how Marduk built his empire off of Tiamat's body. And we've seen this mythology spouted time and time again. And I love how, as I start this live, now music is blaring. I don't know if you can hear that, but now I got neighbors upstairs and music is blaring. But I'm going to keep going. I'm not stopping and I'm not moving spaces. They lied. First of all, whenever you see something with a T, especially as it relates to a goddess, it's a problem, unfortunately. You can see this within the frequencies even in Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. If you look at the frequency of the T, you go back into the energies of the Tau cross. This is a very priestly frequency, a patriarchal frequency. In Göbekli Tepe, which is an ancient site within the within Turkey, there's a lot of T's there. And really what this is showing is it's actually showing a demonstration of the division of the goddess. The ways in which civilizations were built upon the body of the goddess. T is a problem. It's already a problem. It's already division. T. That's not even a goddess vibration. T, 2 lines, really? A vertical line and a horizontal line? No, goddess is spiral, circular, rounded. So already, Enuma Elish, one of the first texts, one of the first religious texts that we can trace back already, before the Bible, all that kind of stuff, they're already dividing the goddess. Because the original creation story is of a parthenogenic goddess who was the sea and the fresh water simultaneously. She birthed creation through herself, which also meant that she birthed the Anunnaki. They don't want to talk about that, though. They don't want to talk about that part. because then they get outranked. Yeah, Anunnaki get outranked then. Ooh, that's a problem. They even want to give us Inanna. Now, I'm cool with Inanna. I like Inanna. I wrote a book on her. And we're going to actually bring in the frequencies of Inanna into this conversation because she's pissed about this as well. Okay? She's pissed about this as well. We'll bring her into the conversation a bit later. But even Inanna is a reboot of the primordial frequencies. Even Inanna has this tension of needing to be paired with a consort, and we see this tension come out in some of the mythology. She wasn't really interested in it, but she did it, but she wasn't really, it wasn't really her thing to be partnered. She was really more of a free spirit. She really wanted to travel. That's why her biggest legacy is her descent into the underworld, because she was a traveler. She's a directional navigator. She's not really thinking about being a mother or a wife like that. She wants consciousness. That was her big thing. And if you notice, within her particular story, when she was trying to go into the underworld, everybody was hating on her for going into the underworld. Really, what that was saying is that everybody was trying to gatekeep her and tell her to stay in her place. No, no, no. You're queen of heaven and earth. Stay there. That should be enough. And then she gets typecast as being selfish or being greedy, for wanting to explore, for wanting to deepen her consciousness. So already, even this goddess Inanna that they elevate within the Anunnaki text, she's already being gatekept. You can see it in their mythology. She has to fight to activate her consciousness in the underworld. She dies almost. I mean, she's able to be resurrected, but people went to war with her because she wanted to extend her consciousness. That is the frequency of the Anunnaki. That is the frequency of the goddess within the Anunnaki context. Now, Namu is a parthiogenic goddess. She seeded creation through herself, and she was the fresh water and the seawater simultaneously. But what you have with the frequencies of the Anunnaki is the energy of the jealous god. And I guess you could see why they might be jealous. If they are shadowed by a being who can create from herself, that could make a being feel a little less, a little insignificant, a little jealous. And so, to overcompensate for that, division, divide. Because if you can fracture that same creational consciousness into itty bitty pieces, well, then you can control. That's the way, right? Divide and conquer. That's pretty textbook, right? So off top, the goddess is already divided, even with the most ancient text that a lot of folks, they want to uplift and say is the most holy text, the Enuma Elish. The goddess is already divided, though, if you follow that particular framework. Now, for this doesn't mean that everybody is going to rock with the parthiogenic frequency. That's just the way it is. Not everybody's rocking with the parthiogenic codes. You got some teachers out there that are goddesses, and I'm not taking anything away from anybody. I'm not going to even take away the title of goddess from them. You have teachers out there who rock more with the goddess as a divided form, because that's where their consciousness started. They're goddesses, and they have every right to call themselves goddesses. But that's why I'm bringing in this term godhood beyond godhood. Because some beings are carrying the codes of godhood beyond godhood. They're parthiogenic. More of these beings are awakening on the planet. You're looking around you in your relationships, in all of the things that society tells you you should be, what you should do, and you're miserable. Because really, you hold the frequency of godhood beyond godhood. And you're surrounded by beings who want you to stay in your place. And according to them, your place is division. The misery will continue. It will feel like you're living in hell. And not in the cute way either, because there's some really on and popping places in the underworld. But I'm talking about the traditional hell that's, that's not cute. Yeah, it's going to continue to feel like hell until you step into that godhood beyond godhood that you were coded with. There are beings on this planet right now holding parthenogenic codes who are really here to steward this collective consciousness shift. Y'all are the ones who are shadow banned. Y'all are the ones who have it the most difficult a lot of times. Because you're wearing the Tiamat script. You're wearing that Tiamat Marduk script. An empire being built upon your frequency by jealous gods. Meanwhile, you hold the codes to wholeness, to source origin. And you can't fight division with division when you're holding the codes to wholeness. Your best bet is going to be reverse engineering yourself out of that division. What that means is a lot of rest. You will require a lot of rest. You will require a lot of space to go through this process known as recapitulation. They also call it integration as well, or reintegration. It's this idea of finding all of the fractured aspects of yourself, traveling through spaces in time, moments in time where you were divided. If you don't do that, it's just going to show up in your daily life, and then you're going to be living in a hell state. These are the leadership codes that beings who are parthenogenic are encoded with right now. If you're around any beings who are making you feel guilty for taking rest, making you feel guilty for wanting spaciousness, they will be your demise. They're coded that way. It's embedded in the grid systems. It's embedded in your birth chart and theirs. Love for me has always been somewhat of an enigma. I thought I knew what love was. I really did. I thought love was being compassionate, giving my time and energy to support others, to help others learn and grow. And that is still very much a part of love, an aspect of love that I connect with. But it's divided. It's not full. It's not a full circle at all. It's definitely not spiral. Because you get to a certain point where it needs to be about you first. Because if you're holding those parthenogenic codes, your leadership comes from a state of wholeness. And are you really able to love if you're in a state of division, especially if your essence remembers wholeness. It's going to feel off. It's going to feel like you're giving from a state of depletion. Because there's going to come a time after you've gone through a certain level of recapitulation, bringing all of those divided parts back into wholeness, where you are going to be issuing a very large consciousness shift, and you will be able to do it. You will. From a state of wholeness, not division. So you pouring into yourself is going to create a collective consciousness shift. That's why you have so many grid systems, so many spells at play right now to keep you divided. You taking out time and space for yourself, your wholeness, shifts the collective consciousness of the cosmos. This is why there are so many campaigns to keep the goddess divided. This is why the mindset is godhood beyond godhood. We are in Leo season. The feline is very strong, very proud. Watch the feline. The feline is going to get their rest, are they not? Even a wild feline, say a leopard or a lion, they're still going to sleep about a good 19 hours a day. Yeah, they're the apex predator, but they're going to get their rest in, are they not? They're going to lounge, they're going to give themselves baths. And when they're good and ready, they go on the hunt. And they do it with precision and with excellence and with expeditiousness. But it's because they pour into themselves. This is why felines have the frequency of godhood beyond godhood. Folks are going crazy over felines these days. Look, watch what they're doing on social media. They're telling you that there is a very interesting sort of feline frequency that's coming onto this planet right now. I just was on Instagram and randomly came across that old school rapper Exhibit's page. And he's over here, I guess he has a cat. He calls her Thunder Kitty or Thundercat or something like that. And apparently this cat is 20 years old. She looks good. And he went viral because I haven't seen Exhibit in a minute. I have not seen him in a long time. But he went viral over his cat. And now he's over here advertising with his cat. You got a lot of dudes out here taking pictures with cats, taking videos with cats. It's just something to think about. The cat frequency, the feline frequency, is a royal feminine frequency. But are you able to be in your feline? Are you able to exhibit the qualities of an apex predator feline right now? If you're not, there's a problem. Adjust. Change your algorithm. Delete, block the numbers if you need to. Move away if you need to. Unfollow if you need to. Whatever is required for you to be in your luxurious feline. Do it. Take no prisoners. Felines are also apex predators. Even house cats are going to hunt when they feel like it. Just because. That doesn't make them any less beautiful. That doesn't make them any less well rested or respected. Godhood beyond godhood. That's what love is. Connecting back to that frequency. And what that really means is overriding any sort of scripting or stories by beings who are calling themselves gods. Meanwhile, they're building empires on your body, your consciousness. That's coming to an end, though. That's coming to an end. And they scared. They are very, very, they're very nervous. But here's the way it goes. Here's the way the deception goes. If you don't know who you are, then then your power becomes theirs. Because that's how powerful you are. If you believe you're inferior, if you believe you're less than, if you believe you need to explain your existence to anyone in your life right now, well, then your power, you just deferred your power on, and other people they're living it up in your energy, in your energetic field. And some might listen to this message and be like, she might be taking it too far. That sounds a little too selfish. Okay. Well, then you're not in your godhood beyond godhood. That's fine. You're in your Tiamat. Okay, stay Tiamat. Stay divided. See how it went for Tiamat. That's how the book of the Enuma Elish started, with Tiamat being divided, being fallen. That's what they did to Medusa. Cut off her head. Used that same power from her head, from her consciousness, to build empires, to create talismans. Yeah, just like they did Lilith too. Built the whole tree of life, tree of death architecture on her body. Division. Always division with them. Always division with these beings. Because returning to a state of wholeness interrupts their whole program, their whole scripting. Makes them invisible. Makes them jealous. And yet, parthiogenic beings, the parthiogenic goddess, has an interesting journey. You can't stay divided with these beings. You absorb them. You hold the frequency of wholeness. You match the frequency of the same beings that divided you. To remember any information about yourself that was harvested, that was rewritten, that you forgot about in sleep state. You go through them. You cannot oppose them because you birthed them. It's a grandmotherly big mama kind of energy. It's like, because a lot of these stories too, what you'll notice is that it's always the sun. Peep this, y'all. It's always the sun. It's in many mythologies. Heru in some mythologies slayed Isis. Marduk was Tiamat's son. He slayed her. Yaldabaoth was Sophia's son. He made her fall. And I'm sure there are many, many, many other stories in many different pantheons. It had to be this way. This is the jealous God algorithm. It is a code that is embedded throughout the simulation. So what is a mother to do? What is a creatrix to do? What is a parthiogenic goddess who represents godhood beyond godhood to do? You can't necessarily fight your children. It doesn't make sense. You stay in division when you do that. But you do integrate them. You do hold the frequency of knowing that you sourced them and you absorb them. And as you do that, you bring them back into a state of wholeness. They're in a complete state of forgetfulness. This legacy, this mythology of the son slaying the mother has been told time and time again in mythology to the point of normalization. And yet it would be the most horrific offense if we were to see this on the news, right? Of a son slaying his mother. But it's something that's written into the algorithm time and time again, because this was how the simulation was created. It was based upon division. This is why we're talking about love as a 4-letter word. To get to love in the simulation, you go through Yahweh. Yahweh is known as being the angelic host. He hosts angels. That's an extremely powerful frequency. Yahweh also hosts power, and power is through the heart. I mentioned earlier about the legend of Ptah being able to build civilizations and be the master craftsman through the power of his heart. This is an extremely strong technology in the simulation. And yet to get to it, you go through the frequency of why. You go through the frequency of Yahweh, which is that's really another way of saying you go through the energies of Enlil. So if you have issues with Yahweh or Enlil, well, then that's going to block your access to the power of your heart, which is a builder creational frequency. And for the parthenogenetic goddess, you most certainly are going to have issues with Yahweh or Enlil that will at some point be integrated for you to represent your full wholeness, your full creational codes. Yahweh is a jealous God. But here's the other thing. This is another way in which love is incomplete, at least the way they tell us. Love is a 4-letter word, just like other curse words that we are encouraged not to say. We get demonized for cursing too much. A lot of these curse words are 4-letter words. Yahweh has the power to curse as well. Yahweh is not just, I mean, he told you he's a jealous God. So yes, there's a lot of language. There's a lot of scripture as it relates to Yahweh and love. And Yahweh being the key. Yahweh is actually written in the DNA code. And it even says a lot of passages around Yahweh being written on your heart. So if you're not accepting Yahweh into your heart, well, let's go back to what love means according to some of these etymologies. Friendliness, deep attachment, affection, care, pleasing, agreeable, valuable, precious or cherished, costly or expensive. Well, then these are energies that you close yourself off to. So a lot of times for the parthenogenetic goddess, it can feel like a catch-22. Because you might inherently know that the source of love comes from you. Because love is creation. And yet at the same time, the simulation is telling you that the only way to get to love, to get to the technology of the heart, and it is a powerful technology, way more powerful than the brain, is to go through the jealous God who divided you. And if you don't do this, then beings who are encoded with the energies of Yahweh dominate you. They immediately will outrank you within the simulation. Immediately. They'll be able to curse you. They'll be able to cast spells of division on you if you don't accept Yahweh into your heart. This is why we go through the big three religions today. Because the goddess will no longer be divided. So we're going to discuss the hidden curriculum of the simulation. I've been discussing the hidden curriculum of the simulation quite a bit in other downloads. There are quote unquote cheat codes to certain things. There are ways in which there are certain scripts in your life right now, whether or not you've ever been to church in your life, and you might be playing out a whole Bible story in your life right now. Or a story from the Torah. Or a story from the Quran. Yes. Because these big three religions were created by the same beings, the same consciousness. Well, you might ask, well, why would they create three religions? And they've actually created many, many more. But we're going to focus on the big three today. Because they want to divide. So what they did is they put codes in one religion, and then they put codes in another religion, and then they put codes in another religion. Meanwhile, on the news, they have these religions fighting each other, having you constantly choose sides. And we've all done it at some point. I used to be very political at one point. Very, very political. I learned about division early. Actually, one of my first job, I was a telephone fundraiser. I've been on this polarity integration path very early. My first job, 16 years old. They didn't know I was 16. I got a job as a telephone fundraiser back in the day when that was a thing. So I would literally be on the phones. 1 minute I would be calling the Democrats. I'd be on the Democrat campaign. There'd be an election coming up. And then Democrats would, I'd be saying my lines to get the Democrats to give money, okay, for these campaigns. The next hour, I would be calling the Republicans. Yep. Polarity integrator at an early age. I learned about this stuff at an early age. So I learned about division and also just how we're trained to be divided. And as a person who's paid to get people to donate to campaigns, you got to be neutral. So at the time, I was more on the Democratic side. I am not political at all anymore. But at the time, I was more Democratic. But I'd be calling the Republicans. And I'm going to be honest with y'all. I like talking to Republicans better because they didn't argue as much. It took so much to get a little $25 out of the Democrats. Because there was a lot of passion. Like the Democrats, they tended to be more passionate. Okay. And anyway, I'm not going to get into the whole structure of how that whole system works, maybe for another day. But there's a reason. You can all you have to do is look at the imagery, the animal totems of these parties, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, and it tells you everything you need to know. So if you are a Democrat and you're upset with Democrats, well, what animal totem are you repping? You really can't be mad. I mean, it's in the symbolism, but that's for another day. Meanwhile, the Republicans, they knew it was just about, look, let's just get that money. They're on that Yahweh frequency. Remember, love, according to the etymology, it also means costly or expensive, valuable, precious, cherished. Their love was, hey, look, here's the credit card. Let's go. Yeah, yep. I wouldn't have to say much. Just be like, oh, I'm calling from such and such. Oh, okay. Let me get my credit card. As a telephone fundraiser, you love hearing that. Democrats, they be arguing with you for like 30 minutes, all crying almost on the phone, talking about how they wish that such and such politician would have grow a spine and this and that. And then when you finally did get them to pledge, they wouldn't even put it on a credit card. Anyway, that's going way, way back into my old school Rolodex. Okay. So we are going to look at the big three religions today. We're going to look at the big three religions. So first, let's go. I was really curious about love. I wanted to see, well, what do these religions say about love? So let's start first with Judaism. And so you even know, like, the Old Testament Bible is more Hebrew. Okay, so that's also a part of Judaism. So you're already seeing a connection with Christianity within that as well. But I was looking into the Torah for this. So this is a quote. I don't know if I'm gonna pronounce this right. My Hebrew, I'm not really great with the Hebrew. But you have Perkei Avot 5:16-17. Any love that depends on something, when that something ceases, that love ceases. But a love that does not depend on anything never ceases. I like that quote a lot. I liked a lot of the quotes about love from the Torah. Another quote: acts of loving kindness are greater than charity. Another one: judge every person favorably. Next: whoever overlooks the wrongs done to him, all of his sins are overlooked. So the patterns of rabbinic thought on love that I was looking at was that loving God, you love God with wholehearted devotion, because Yahweh's on your heart. So you want to, if you don't love God, you're not able to have that wholehearted experience. Loving one's neighbor through justice and generosity. And then they talk about a concept of practicing chesed, which is loving kindness. Love is not primarily understood as a feeling, but as a commitment embodied in everyday conduct, relationships, and acts of mercy. When I was reading the frequencies of the Torah, it was calming to me when I was reading the energies of the Torah, but something wasn't quite adding up. Because where's the division? We know that these religions, right? Because you can read, how many times have you read a religious text where you're like, yeah, that sounds nice, but then why do you do X, Y, and Z? Because all of the big three religions that we're going to discuss today, first, let's start with Judaism. Well, I just read these really beautiful quotes about love, loving kindness, and loving your neighbor and all this. But we know, at least when we look at the news or if we hear about things in passing, for folks who don't watch the news, me being one of them, but still, you hear things on social media in passing. You go to the grocery store and boom, the news is on there, and then you hear the commentary. We know that these things are not being practiced. So the first thing we like to say is we call like deeply religious people who spout a certain sort of belief system, but then their actions don't represent it. We usually call them hypocrites. But remember, these religions were created through a consciousness of division. So, on the one hand, you're going to find these beautiful quotes about loving kindness. But in each of these religions, Quran's a little different. We're going to get to Quran in a bit. But there's going to be an opposite shadow side. So it won't be in that book. So like, for example, in the Torah, they had these beautiful quotes on love. And, even if you look at the Kabbalistic tree of life, there's a lot of focus on love and mercy, as well as expanding in consciousness. But in a simulation based upon division, division is going to need to be placed somewhere. They placed it in what is known as the Klippoth, the Kabbalistic tree of death. So there's always going to be like a shadow aspect to something. And so you might think certain beings who are religious, they're being hypocrites, but they're actually not. A lot of beings, especially the ones who created these texts or who study these texts closely and share it with the masses, they're deeply initiated. So yeah, they're initiated in all of these things related to loving kindness and whatnot, and yet they're also initiated into the shadow aspect, the exact opposite. This is what maintains balance and equilibrium and neutrality, which is actually a strong wealth frequency. And to really get to the frequencies of Yahweh, I mean, they say it in the scripture. He's a jealous God. He's not all benevolent. You need to be both. The hidden curriculum will require you to merge the opposites with these big three religions. So Christianity is the religion of the sun. There's a lot of focus on the sun, the light, resurrecting, becoming the light, all of that. Meanwhile, Islam focuses a lot more on the moon. It's more of a feminine frequency. Before there was Allah, there was Alat. She was a feminine goddess. As a matter of fact, I was reading I really like this book. It's called Ark of the Christos. It's by William Henry. I went into this book on another live that I did. I think this was on the Ancient Smiths. But he's really good. I like his stuff because he's really good at decoding. He kind of rocks more with the Inky frequency, the Inky Ptah frequency, which is a little bit more of the Christos, the Christian kind of frequency as well. That's why he created that book, Ark of the Christos. But he discusses this energy, what is known as Tula. Tula is the frequency of the galactic center or the galactic core. It's also the frequency of Libra. It's a divine feminine frequency. And he decodes that Tula is the source of Allah, and that this is a more feminine frequency, and this is also connected to the energies of Alat. So Islam, and they tell you not with the words these days, but they do tell you with the dress. Like if you look at the burqa, that is an extremely divine feminine frequency. That's representing the black hole. That's representing the dark matter of creation. That is an extreme wealth frequency. There's a reason why there's so much wealth in the Middle East, because the divine feminine in her primordial power is a wealth frequency. So if you have a religion that has the feminine within their darkness, which is more of the original creative source, and you also have a religion where, you know, a man will have like several wives, like those are generators, like those are strong energy generators. And you're connecting, this is a frequency that connects straight to the galactic core, or Tula, which translates back to Allah or Alat. That's more of a left-hand path, though. And you can see, too, right, with the, well, first of all, the Kaaba, you know, you have like the black cube frequency. There's a lot of magnetism. There's a lot of magnetic frequencies with the Kaaba. And on top of that, you see it with the moon. They don't really prioritize the sun in Islam. They prioritize the moon. So on the right hand path, you got your Christ, you got your sun. On the left hand path, you got Allah or Alat, and you got the moon, the darkness. And right in the middle, you have Judaism with the Star of David. And isn't that really an upward triangle and a downward triangle merged together? Isn't really, I mean, if you think about the upward facing triangle, that would be more of a masculine light frequency. And then the downward triangle would be more of the feminine dark frequency. And it's merged together. Another way you could describe this is as the higher self and the lower self merged together. Another way you could say this is the Christ and the Antichrist merged together. These are the secrets of the Merkaba. These are the secrets of the six-pointed star. Neutrality is a very strong wealth frequency. The ability to be able to hold both the dark and the light simultaneously is a strong power, especially in a simulation that's based on binary code and division. Meanwhile, you have folks watching the news, watching all of these wars going on, these same wars that have been going on for several years. They just keep happening. And then you have beings who get caught up in the hive mind and keep talking about it and keep bringing energy related to it. Meanwhile, it's the same dynamic going on. These religions were created by the same infrastructure. They're sourced from the same infrastructure. But the division is what helps folks not evolve. And some beings are benefiting on this division, because beings who are divided are a lot easier to be energy harvested from. It's a lot easier to do it. But if you have your upward facing triangle and your downward facing triangle merged, that's a game maker move in a simulation based on binary code. So it's something to learn about. Something, if you are on a polarity integration journey, if you are on a path to neutrality, 8-8 in the chat. If you are on a path to neutrality, try this. Try, before you get to the Judaism part, try this. If you are thinking about, if you're contemplating a particular issue in your life, I guarantee you there's a Bible quote related to it, and there's a quote in the Quran related to it. Can you read the Bible quote and the Quran quote simultaneously? You might have some resistance to it. I know I did at first. I was more just even though I didn't grow up religious at all, I still was a part of more of that Christ program growing up in the West. And then also my bloodline is Christian, was way more Christian. I also have Islam in the bloodline as well. But I wasn't as connected with it or directly connected with it. But a good way to start your polarity integration and to like merge the opposites and to balance out your brain hemispheres is, say you're thinking about wealth. Find a quote in the Bible as it relates to wealth. Find a quote in the Quran as it relates to wealth. Meditate on both of those. You are working on your sun, balancing out your sun, your inner sun, and your inner moon when you do that. And on top of that, the way the algorithms and the grid systems are written in the simulation, they will benefit folks who are a part of these big three religions more. The ones who study these religions will be higher ranked in the simulation. And sometimes literally there are like cheat codes that you can access through certain scriptures. So if you can integrate an archetype in a certain scripture, or if you can integrate a certain quote, even if you're not religious. And you can do that and merge your right hemisphere and your your right hemisphere with the Bible, and your left hemisphere with the Quran. Also, the Bible is the one frequency. So I did a download a while ago on the frequencies of, I called it, I forgot what it was called. Something about the deprogramming the universe. And I go into depth about binary code and how binary code runs most things in our society. But the universe itself is based upon division because the universe prioritizes one. So it's only half of the actual equation within the simulation. So this is why, you have a whole phenomenon going on right now around New Age to Jesus. And you're going to see this more. You're going to see more spiritual teachers that are going to start talking about Christ. Me being one of them. I started talking about the crossing, because I realized, I peeped the algorithm, and I realized that there are certain codes for consciousness expansion through crossing in the Bible. They tell you there's a crossroads. The Bible is a crossroads manual. And if you have the eyes to see, you can read it in a whole different perspective. But it's the one, a part of you, if you're mastering, if you are on this, if you want to transcend the binary code of the simulation, because consciousness retrieval is going to require us to eventually transcend binary code. But you also want to integrate the binary first, which is integrating the 1 and the 0. So the 1 would be the Bible or Christianity, the light. And then the 0 would be Islam, which is more of the feminine. This is like a more luxury frequency, actually. The feminine 0, that's more of an Islam frequency as well. You can see that when you look at like the GDP, like overall. And even like it's a wealth frequency, and it doesn't even have to do with the amount of money. It's just a way of life. It's more luxurious. Like when you're getting into an area that is primarily focused on Islam. Because even if you think about it, right, in Islam, you pray 5 times a day. So there's a luxury of time that you can see with that. Can you imagine, like in a quick Western society that's focused on one, which is focused on the light, which is more about do, go. It's going to be really difficult to hold the frequency of Islam of praying 5 times a day, stopping your day. That would be a luxury. If you were working in an environment where you were a devout Muslim, but you were in a more Western environment, you might have coworkers looking at you like, must be nice. Oh, you took 5 breaks today to go pray? Oh, But that's because Islam is more based on 0. It's more based on the feminine. So even if you look at the structure of things, and I know that could sound a little weird because we hear so much about the feminine being oppressed in Islamic cultures. And I'm not saying that that's not a part of the story, but that's a very divided aspect of the story. There's way more to it than that. There's actually a very powerful frequency that the feminine has in Islamic culture, actually. It's more subtle. It's not based upon a one frequency, but it's definitely there. So anyways, in binary code, you got your Christianity, or the light, which would be the 1, or unity consciousness. But here's the thing, unity consciousness is based on division. It's telling you it in the name. A unit is 1. So unity consciousness does not incorporate the 0. If you really break down the etymology of that, you can see that. So you have your 1, which is Christianity. That's a part of you mastering binary code. But you will be out of balance. You can, yeah, I mean, you could stay in the one, but you're not, your consciousness, you're going to be out of balance. Then there's going to be more of a prioritization on do productivity, staying in the light. That's more of a Luciferian energy as well. At some point, what you'll also start seeing with spiritual teachers, which you're probably also already seeing, is then you're going to start seeing a progression of spiritual teachers going into Islam more. They might even teach certain spiritual practices online, but then in their actual practice, in their home life, they're Islamic. Because they are on a path to mastering the one and the zero, holding the one and the zero as well. So you're going to see more people also going into Islam. And a lot of folks are feeling threatened by this, or they're like, oh, the takeover of Islam, this and this and that. But it's actually a part, if we're looking at the hidden curriculum of the way the simulation is run, a part of mastering binary code is Christianity and Islam. It was really, though, created from the same consciousness. At least when we talk about when the books came out, when the writings came out, it was from the same consciousness. So you have your one, which is Christianity, then you have your zero, which is Islam, and then Judaism is the merging of the one and the zero. This is why you see a lot of times folks who practice Judaism, there's a wealth frequency there too. Out of the three, I have to look into that more. Out of the three, where is the wealth circulating the most? I don't actually know the answer to that. I'm only going to go based on hearsay. A lot of times they'll say that's Judaism, that's where like a lot of the concentrations of power is. But it's because they're in that religion, they are merging the upward triangle and the downward facing triangle. They're merging the one with the zero. It's 10. That's the frequency of Malkuth in Kabbalah. That's kingdom mindset. So meanwhile, you have this illusion of these religious groups fighting each other. Meanwhile, they were created by the same beings, the Anunnaki. A lot of these religions are an Anunnaki creation, but it was based upon division. So a part of that plan with these particular spiritual, these ways of knowing, these religions, was to keep beings divided. Because if you were to merge your one with the zero, well then Islam and Christians, they wouldn't be fighting anymore. Okay. If you were to merge your one with the zero, and if that was more normalized, well then Islam and Judaism, they wouldn't have beef anymore either. So division is what the masses are given, but the folks who are initiated are incorporating Christianity as well as Islam as well as Judaism. This is a part of the hidden curriculum, like it or not. This is it. This is it. So let's go into Quran. What does the Quran say about love? So in Quran 2, 195, indeed Allah loves the doers of good. Another quote, indeed Allah loves those who act justly. Another quote, those who spend in prosperity and adversity, who restrain anger and who pardon people, Allah loves the doers of good. Another one, ask forgiveness of your Lord and then turn to him in repentance. Indeed, my Lord is the most merciful, most loving. Another quote about love, indeed, Allah loves those who continually repent and loves those who purify themselves. And last one, you will never attain righteousness until you spend from that which you love. Out of all of them, that's my favorite. But you'll notice in these particular quotes in the Quran, there's more of an influence. There's more of an influence of do it to please Allah. It's kind of like, okay, if you do this thing, then Allah will love you. So it's a little more like when I was reading the Torah, it felt a little bit more even keeled. When I was reading the Quran, it was bringing me more to another side, just frequentially. Let's see. Now we're going to read some Bible quotes. But before we read the Bible quotes, a little backstory that I just learned recently. So all of these quotes from the Bible are the King James Version. So let's go back to this concept of division. So I mentioned that even though in Judaism and the quotes I read from the Torah, it's very much about loving kindness, treating your neighbor kindly, all of that. Meanwhile, there is the klipoth in which is based upon the Kabbalah as well, and that's based more upon division, and they call it the shattering as well. This idea of shattering of vessels, that there's this idea that your sparks of holiness get trapped in the klipoth, and humanity is in charge of releasing those sparks of holiness. So there's this like need for things to be shattered for some reason. Okay. So this is just like, this is the way they balance the upward facing triangle and then the downward facing triangle. Okay. So yes, there are these quotes about loving kindness and whatnot in the Torah, but there's going to be another space for shattering where there's going to be the exact opposite. Now, the Quran is the most mysterious. And I think it's because it's a feminine sort of technology. It's a little bit more in the darkness, the dark feminine. You can see that too with the burqa. It's also the moon, you see the moon, like the lunar imagery with that as well. So I think that there are parts of this particular school of thought or religion that are not written down. Because, the writing, that's a little bit more, you're more in your one with the writing sort of stuff. So because there's such a strong femininity attached to Islam, it's more mysterious. So you go into the darkness, there's a deep Saturnian frequency. There's definitely a Saturnian frequency with Judaism as well. But it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more left-hand path with the Quran. So there are these frequencies of the jinn as well that you could say would be the where division is, even to like the jinn themselves. There's a lot of stories about them being divided as well. But there's some mystery. There's a little bit more mystery. So there's not like a direct text that opposes the Quran that's within the Quranic or that's within the Islamic faith. But there definitely is one that I can point to in Judaism, and then there's one that I will point to in Christianity as well, that a lot of people may not know. A lot of Christians may not know about this. So we're gonna bring that to light as well, because Christianity is all about the light. So let's bring it into the light. But Quran is a little bit more mysterious. So there's mysteries that I believe are not written down. This is the more of a feminine frequency. So before we get into the Bible quotes, let's talk about King James. Because King James, that's the version of the Bible that most of us read, is the King James version. That's the one that's sold to the masses and whatnot. But here's the thing. The King James version of the Bible was first published in 1611. But before King James published his version of the Bible that is now widely disseminated, that Christians read in their churches and in their homes, a few years before, in 1597, King James wrote a book on demonology. Yes, he sure did. So before he edited and created his own Bible, he wrote on demons. Okay, so we need to bring that to the light, Christians. Your dude, King James, he wrote on demons first. before he got to the Bible. Because once again, true mastery is merging the Christ and Antichrist simultaneously. And King James certainly knew this. So he covered himself. He wrote a whole book on demonology before he got to the Bible. Many years, several years before, 1597. So let's see some of the quotes that I highlighted the quotes on the devil. Okay, so in this particular book, the way it goes was in this demonology book that King James wrote, he really wanted to go in on spell work. He wanted to like let people know that witches existed. You know, this is around the time of the witch trials and the witch burnings when that was going on. Okay, so he needed to kind of create some dialogue or some text for certain priesthoods to utilize to, you know, basically be able to call out witches or call out supposed witches, you know, very jealous God frequency stuff, right? So a lot of this book, the cover is that's why King James wrote the book, was to warn people about witches and spirits and spell work. And also he was very paranoid. He thought that a lot of beings were out to get him, I guess. So I think that was another thing. But really, it's because King James was skilled in demonology. You don't write a whole book on something without knowing how to wield that information. So it's not just about warning people about demons or warning people about spirits. It's also because he had a deep interest in it and knew the powers of it. Remember, King Solomon, who is known as being Israel, he bound the demons. He got help from the demons, the jinn, and the angels to build his kingdom. So they're telling you right there, it was a mixture of merging of the higher self and the lower self. So even Christianity, as much as it's talking about being in the light, there's also a shadow side. That same person who created the King James version of the Bible, who did all that editing, he also before created a text on demonology. So some of the quotes, he says, the devil is the prince of air. The prince of air is also referred to in the Bible as well. The devil can never work except where God permits him. Look, come on now. Come on. Let me read that again. Let's see what King James says about the devil. By the way, devil, if we look at it reversed, it means lived. Evil means live. Let's just put that right there. But I mean, he's saying it himself. He said the devil can never work except where God permits him. He wrote this in his demonology book, y'all. The devil deceives men by false appearances. He telling on himself again. Curiosity is the door whereby many enter into the devil's snares. But didn't you write a book on demonology? So you're curious yourself. The devil has many subtle ways to entrap mankind. Look, this is how they do, y'all. They're going to give you all of the information. What they're going to do, though, is divide it. There's a cosmic law that they follow where they give the information out to the masses, but nothing in that cosmic law says how they need to disseminate it. They just need to disseminate the information, tell people how things are going, but they'll hide it in different things. So this was his way of covering himself. 6ix9ine in the chat. This was his way of covering himself. Because true mastery in the simulation is the merging of the higher self and the lower self, Christ, Antichrist simultaneously. Beings who are initiated, no matter what team they're on, whether it's Christ, Allah, or Judaism, they know this frequency. They just may not teach it to the masses, but he did cover himself because before he wrote a book on the Bible, which is more about the light, he made sure to cover himself and integrate his lower self as well. And he wrote his book on demonology. And as much as beings will try to say, oh yeah, he wrote it because he hated demons or he hated the devil, he wanted to expose. But he's also saying that the devil can never work except where God permits him. So that means that God and the devil work together. He said that. That's what he wrote. Here's another quote from his demonology book, King James's demonology book. The devil has many subtle ways. Oh, I read that one, to entrap mankind. Okay, the next one. The devil can promise kingdom, riches, and pleasures, yet all are but deceit. Doesn't the Bible talk a lot about kingdoms and riches and pleasures too? I'm just saying. You know, I mean, didn't they talk about the land of milk and honey and kingdom mindset? And I'm just saying. So now that we talk about King James and how he wrote a whole ass book on demonology before he even got to the Bible, you would think, you see where his priorities were, right? He made sure to get that demon book out first. And I'm not faulting him for it. I'm just saying, like, this is based upon division, and the true secret is merging the opposites. So while you're watching in the news and you're picking a side, oh, I'm on Palestine's side, oh, I'm on Israel's side, be on both sides. Be on all three. Play both sides. Play all three sides. Cover yourself. Because they did. They covered themselves. The folks who created these religions, they covered themselves. They mastered the right-hand path, the left-hand path, and then they merged the opposites. But if you want to stay divided and pick sides and all of that, or demonize certain religions, well, then that's exactly where they want you to be. Exactly where they want you to be. Okay, let's read some quotes from the Bible. Okay, so this is Peter 4:8. Above all, keep loving one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude of sins. John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. All right, and the next, whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. And love, or Yahweh is also written on our heart. So that's a frequency of Yahweh right there. Yeah, God is love. God is Yahweh though. So if you're not incorporating that frequency of Yahweh, I'm just speaking, I'm not saying what I agree with. I'm just decoding, and I'm following what I'm decoding. Okay, because I see this as a simulated hologram. And it is true, like there is actual spiritual technology that you can activate through these things. Romans 13:8 through 10. Owe no one anything except to love one another. For the one who loves another has fulfilled the law. Love does no wrong to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law. Colossians 3:14. And above all these, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. And then 1 Peter 4:8. Above all, keep loving one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude. Oh, I guess I wrote that twice. I guess I really like that one because I wrote it twice. Because love covers a multitude of sins. And it does. If you're wearing the frequency of Yahweh, which is the tetragrammaton, the Yod He Vod He, you're in a state of blamelessness. You think that Yahweh is going to take the fall for anything? And if you're activating that technology of Yahweh, you are in a state of blamelessness. So yeah, love does cover all sins. Yahweh, embodying that frequency of Yahweh, who is the jealous God, who really is Christ and Antichrist simultaneously, that is a state of blamelessness. That is a covering. That is a protection. Yahweh is the angelic host. Okay? And here's the thing about angels. The folks who wear the frequency of angels in the simulation, they are neither fully benevolent nor fully malevolent. They are in the middle. Anyone who's talking about being an angel or having angelic frequencies and they're saying that they're all of the light, I'm not going to say they're lying to you, but they're at least lying to themselves. Because that's not how it works. That's not how the technology works. No, it does not. You are neither fully benevolent nor fully malevolent. You are in the middle. You have merged your upward facing triangle and your downward facing triangle, or your Merkaba, to hold a particular frequency. But this is where it gets a little funky, because Yahweh, the first letter in Yahweh is Y. So beings who hold the XY chromosome have a direct line into Yahweh. That it's a key. If you look at the way even Y is, it's a key. It's a key to Yahweh. It's a key to the technology of the heart, which is a builder frequency. So this is where, beings who are currently identified more as XX chromosomes, who are also parthiogenic, who have parthiogenic codes, that Yahweh frequency is something to really master. Otherwise, what you're going to find is that you'll always be gatekept by that same energy, and you'll always be outranked by that same energy, because that's how the technology was set up. That Y key is critical. That tetragrammaton frequency is critical. But it's, especially if you're holding parthiogenic codes, what I've discovered is it's helpful to go to as far back as Yahweh, but you'll go further, even further back than that, into the Anunnaki frequencies of Enlil. Can you hold the frequency of Enlil? So here's what happens for beings who get to the Anunnaki frequency, who start realizing like, oh, all of these religions were created by the Anunnaki. Okay, let me study the Anunnaki. So a lot of y'all will get caught up in these division scripts as it relates to the Anunnaki. And what they'll tell you is they'll say that, Inky is the good guy and Lil is the bad guy. Inky is the one who wants to liberate human consciousness, and Lil is the one who wants to oppress human consciousness. Another script of division. They are on the same team. Inky and Enlil, they work together. Just like Tiamat and Marduk is a technology that works together in the Anunnaki scripting as well. So peep that, because you'll get into these stories where they'll try to get you to pick a side. Okay, are you more on the team of Inky or are you more on the team of Enlil? You want to be both. You want to incorporate both of those frequencies, especially if you're holding on to those parthiogenic codes, as well as Anu as well. All those sky fathers, storm god energies, you'll want to integrate that. But as you can imagine, that could be difficult, and you might need some time and space to do that. Otherwise, those energies will gang up on you in the way the simulation is. So Enlil is a frequency of Yahweh. So if you're holding parthiogenic codes, yes, work through the energies of Yahweh, but that tetragrammaton is going to come online more if you really focus on going to the origin of Yahweh, which would be more of I would just say the big three: Anu, Enlil, Inky. Work through all of those frequencies. Inky's a little bit more of that Ptah, Christos frequency. Like when you're getting into that ascension, rainbow body type stuff, that's more of an Inky sort of energy. And you definitely, that's a crossroads frequency too. So and it's like kind of more of a Templar. It's like more of a Templar frequency. So you've seen me do a lot of content on this because I was going through my Inky. Okay, this time, this Lionsgate portal, this God Star portal, I've been going through my Enlil, my jealous God, my storm God frequency, Old Testament. Yes, Enlil, because he's Yahweh. He's the tetragrammaton. This is you will, as a parthiogenic coded being, you'll be embracing these energies and restoring wholeness within yourself, and restoring, like, wherever you externalize power outside of yourself. Because a lot of times what a lot of feminines, or a lot of feminines who call themselves God, who are goddesses, I'm not going to take that away from them, but there are goddess minded feminines out there that are teaching other goddesses about, okay, like, this is how you find your romantic partner, this is how you are in a healthy marriage or a happy marriage, and all of that kind of stuff. There's a certain consciousness, if you're not, especially if you're not parthiogenic coded, where you'll need that, because that's how you get to Y, because the Y chromosome holds the Y key, and that's a very strong, powerful frequency. So there is a certain consciousness of goddesses on the planet who can only be in their full goddess if they are partnered with an XY chromosome. That's not everyone's story or code, though. I'm not going to take that away from them. And yet, for beings who are parthenogenically coded, who are achieving or remembering godhood beyond godhood, that will always leave you in a state of division. That's not to say that you won't ever be partnered, but you'll want to partner from a place of knowing you're parthenogenically coded and connecting fully with that parthenogenic frequency. And it will be very difficult to hold the frequency of a parthenogenic goddess without integrating those same frequencies of like the storm god or the jealous god, because the way the simulation was created based upon division and gatekeeping, you'll be stopped at the gates a lot of times until you can absorb those frequencies. But if you can come at those frequencies and absorb them from a parthenogenic consciousness, you can hold their frequency without feeling like you need to look for that outside of yourself. And what we're going to find is that for beings who are parthenogenically coded, who do decide to partner, what they're going to be doing is they're going to be partnering with beings who are in their full circle, their full spectrum, 360-degree experience. This is what I learned through channeling my ebook on Inanna called Inanna's Love Letters. The real, a lot of these like Anunnaki sort of frequencies, these more bootleg Anunnaki frequencies, what they'll say is that the Vesica Pisces is like a vehicle that you're supposed to share with another partner, or like they inverted the Vesica Pisces in a really weird way, and it was a way to harvest the womb space. So it gets really weird the way some beings, they're kind of more inky encoded, I've noticed, the way they describe the Vesica Pisces. But really, a parthenogenically encoded being, what they would want to do is they would want to be in their full circle, and then they would find somebody who has also embodied their full circle, and then you would merge those two circles together. Okay. But what you have a lot of times, if you go on the twin flame journey as a parthenogenically coded being, and you end up with somebody who's not in their full circle, and the twin flame dynamic, immediately it's a program to be in your half circle. You're in your half circle, and then you find somebody else who's in their half circle, and then you merge to make the full circle. But you're divided. If you're parthenogenically encoded, like you see how that would be not cool. That's why some beings are like not feeling the twin flame thing. But then they also, at the same time, you're going to be in these weird programs where you feel like, okay, I do need to merge with my twin flame because you're holding this really big creational template. So yeah, you will be merging with your twin flame, but that's just a stop on your journey. It's not your final destination. It's just a stop. You'll be absorbing that twin flame program and then continuing on, remembering your parthenogenic self. Now, if you try to partner with somebody who's not in their full circle, let's just say XY chromosome. If you try to partner with an XY chromosome who's not in their full circle, what you'll always end up in is a jealous God script with someone else. You'll always end up with a being who's jealous of you because they're not in their full circle. There are beings on this planet who are wearing the XY chromosome who also honor the goddess. They know that the original goddess was parthenogenic, and they've been seeded on this planet to support with their cultivation and their growth and their blossoming. They do exist. They really do. Um, you're gonna be able to see them and access them more as you go into your wholeness. Okay. But they're also on their journey too. They need to be at their full circle to even hold the frequency and not be jealous of you. Because you see how that's happening a lot, how the feminine, they're talking about how these like men, right, they get jealous. And we've all seen it. Or you get caught up, of another thing that happens in relationships with parthenogenically coded beings all the time is like you feel like you're mothering. You're always like a mother to your partner because in a way you are a mother. Like, So this is where it gets a little weird. I talked about this in a recent short, and we went into this in more depth on the last Black Diamond session. I did a whole, we go in this like way more in depth on Black Diamond too, if you want to check that out. But okay, so the original creator goddess, we talked about Namu. So here's where the destiny swap scripts are coming from, y'all, with the twin flame stuff. If you're parthenogenically encoded, this is what's going on. There's a weird Namu and Kingu script that's happening. And it's also inverted. It's less inverted than the Isis and Osiris script that they have a lot of the twin flames in. But it's still inverted. So in this Namu Kingu script, so Namu was a parthenogenic goddess who, all life was sourced through her. So she didn't need to create with anybody. That wasn't even a thing she needed to do. When she decided to take on a consort, as the legend goes, this is not in the Enuma Elish, but this is a documented story. And there's also statues of her as well. She's more reptilian, not humanoid reptilian, more of like a serpentine frequency. When she did eventually take a consort, it was her son, because she created all things. So it gets really weird, and this is like a really taboo thing, and we don't want to like think about it like this, but I mean, it kind of makes sense if you think about it. So the way the legend goes is that Namu ended up choosing one of her sons as her consort, who was Kingu, who was the moon god. And Marduk was her other son. So Marduk got pissed, which I guess you could see why he got pissed. And then basically destroyed Namu and then castrated Kingu. Then there's this whole Asar script with Kingu. And as the legend goes is that Namu wanted to, basically she gave Kingu the tablets of destiny. This is the hijack. Watch out for the hijack. There's always a little hijack that they like to put in here. Because they plan for this. They know, okay, eventually the goddess is going to wake up and remember that she's parthenogenic. So how are we going to make sure she stays divided? They thought of everything. So what they did is they said, okay, Namu gave Kingu, the moon god, the tablets of destiny, because she favored him. So he had the tablets of destiny. And then Marduk got pissed because he was the overlooked son. It's the same thing with like, Osiris and Set, all that stuff. And basically destroyed, killed Namu, and then also killed Kingu and castrated Kingu, and then basically utilized Kingu's blood to create the human race, which also had Namu's blood. And then took the tablets of destiny. So there, also, if you're parthenogenically encoded, you also might be in these weird, energies of where you feel like you're being divided from your twin flame, and like you're being swapped, you're being taken away from your destiny, and your destiny is to find and unite with your twin flame or your Kingu. But really your destiny is to have those tablets of destiny, quote unquote. And I go into more of what that actually means on Patreon. I'm not going to really talk about it, at least not right here. But also tap into the last subliminal I put out on Namu and Kingu. If you want to like feel into these frequencies more in a meditative way, there is a subliminal. Because this is in this Lionsgate portal, in this Sirius portal, in this God Star or Dog Star portal, however you want to say it. There is there's a strong frequency of division spells. A lot of y'all might be feeling them right now. Spells of division. This is the Namu Kingu script going on. Okay, and we're going to get into it a little bit more. There is also, okay, so Marduk divided Tiamat into two parts, the upper waters and the lower waters. So under the firmament and below the firmament. This would be like your inner earth and your outer earth. The inner earth frequencies are way more privileged. This is your fresh water. So just think about it, right? They gave Tiamat the seawater. What can you really do with seawater if you think about it? It has all that salt in it. You can't even drink it. Be very suspicious of water that you can't even drink. You can't even nourish yourself with seawater. You will die if you drink a whole bunch of seawater. That's a problem. Also, salt is representative of Saturnian time as we approach this Capricorn full moon as well. So meanwhile, the fresh water, which is the Abzu, which Marduk took for himself, which now apparently Inki is the lord of somehow Inki is the lord of the Abzu. That's the drinking water, y'all. That's the inner earth subterranean realms. That's where algorithms are created. That's where the true tablets of destiny is. It's in the algorithm, and who is holding the waters and the frequencies and the access to those algorithms. Are you in the Tiamat algorithm, saltwater? That's you in maritime law. Now, the Abzu, that's a little different. That's more of the privileged frequency. Now you're in the coding layer of the simulation. Okay, now you're able to outrank people. So beings are in the Abzu right now, and if you're parthenogenically encoded, that's why you're feeling destiny swap, because that was you. That the Abzu was you. It wasn't even some male counterpart like they tried to rewrite. It was you. So what they have is they have these parthenogenically encoded beings on the lower ranking side of things, and they want to keep you divided the most, because if you return back to your wholeness and remember your full creational codes, well, then you hold you remember you hold the tablets of destiny. It's you. So that's why they put in this weird hijack with the Namu and Kingu script. Even with the parthenogenic goddess, you'll still see some of those energies of the destiny swap too. That's the destiny swap. That's really what this frequency is. The return of the goddess, the return of the mother on this planet, is the ability for the feminine to represent godhood beyond godhood, which is the ability to override any sort of scripts, any sort of storylines which keeps you out of your power and keeps you in a state of division. That is an access. There's an access pass with that. And that is the Abzu. Now, AI can only generate through fresh water. It needs drinking water. Algorithms, they need the fresh water. It's more of a river frequency. It's not the sea. Well, it is the sea, but we'll get into I talk about that more on Patreon. Okay. So we talked a little bit, we went a few places. Let's recap. We talked about the etymology of love. We read some quotes from the Torah on love. We read some quotes on the Quran on love. We read some quotes from the Bible on love. We read some quotes from the book that King James wrote on demonology, which he had to get out before he wrote the King James version of the Bible. He had to, and I'm not faulting him for it. It's just showing you a pattern. It's showing you that the true power, the folks who have the true power, a lot of times they are in touch with their higher self and their lower selves. They are embodying Christ and Antichrist simultaneously. We talked about how in the hidden curriculum, there's folks who can master all three of these religions that were created by the Anunnaki, which are Christianity, Quran, or Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. If you can hold those big three, if you can integrate the big three, which is the right hand path, left hand path, and the middle path, and embody all three, then you will have more access within the simulation in many, many, many different ways. And for the parthenogenic encoded goddess, this is something you would want to focus on and prioritize, even if it feels cringy. If it feels cringy, that's where you're divided. That's where you'll be absorbing that frequency to remember your power. I go into this more in my book, The 50 Names of Marduk. So now we're going to go into some of the frequencies of Inanna. So this is from my book, Inanna's Love Letters. And in it, she talks about the fear of total love. To embody 360 degrees of love is not as gentle as you think. It is vast. It is consuming. It dissolves identity structures that rely on separation. And so it can feel dangerous. Because you have been taught to love in fragments, to assign love to roles, partner, family, purpose, God, but never to hold all of it at once. Because if you did, you would no longer be controlled through attachment, through lack, through longing. You would not need to seek completion outside of yourself, and entire industries would collapse. The eight-pointed star is not given to those who seek power. It reveals itself to those who can hold multiplicity without fragmentation, to those who can ascend without abandoning what is below, to those who no longer externalize their crown, because the first threshold to my frequency is this: retrieve your crown. If you are still placing authority outside of yourself, you will see my star, but you will not know how to move with it. You know, Inanna's eight-pointed star is directional navigation. She mastered earth, heaven, and the underworld. So she's a navigator. My crown is not worn above me. It is emanated from within me. This is why I cannot be ruled. This is why I cannot be contained. And she also talks about Saturn and the rings of Saturn, because one thing about Inanna is that she holds the ring and the rod. This is her holding the 1 and the 0. She's a code. She holds a code in the simulation. The Anunnaki, they did embed certain codes for folks. They made it hard to find, and they put it in initiated things. But I will say there are codes that the Anunnaki embedded as well. And Inanna's one of them. She holds the ring and the rod. She holds the 1 and the 0. The ring is, you could think of that as like a ring of Saturn, being a ring maker of Saturn even. The rod is like your conductor's wand as well. Okay, it's the ability to be able to conduct your reality. It's the ability to be able to create the space and then also conduct the space that you create. It's a mastery of Saturn. It actually moves you beyond Saturn's rings. Because the rings of Saturn were meant to contain half of the circle, half of the population. Just like the splitting of the waters. Oh, another thing I wanted to mention was, they talk about it in Genesis. I believe it's Genesis 1:7. They talk about the splitting of the Red Sea as well. Okay, so they're showing you the same theme of the splitting of the waters that Marduk did, but also Yahweh did the same thing with the seas as well. I believe it's Genesis 1:7. So the Abzu is fresh water. There's no salt in that. There's no time in that. It's not constricted to time, and it's also more abundant. It's drinkable. You can actually be nourished from it. Meanwhile, the seas are caught up in the maritime frequencies and salt and sadness a lot of times. It can hold the memories of time. This is why Tiamat is always going to be in her fall if she stays only in the salt water. And they lied in the Enuma Elish and just assigned Tiamat to the salt. But the original goddess was all of the waters. She was the fresh water and the salt water. So Saturn is ruling the salt. It's ruled by salt. So Inanna says, there is a moment in your becoming where Saturn releases you, not because you have rejected it, but because you have completed it. You have learned its laws. You have understood its boundaries. You have walked its rings, and then you step beyond them. This is where I meet you. So not as a distant goddess, not as an archetype to worship, but as a frequency you can finally hold. But to do that, you become a ring maker, and you transcend the rings of Saturn. Well, how do you do that? Okay. Can you merge your higher self and your lower self? Can you merge the upward facing triangle and the downward facing triangle? Can you merge the left and the right, the light and the dark, the masculine and the feminine? Can you hold the frequency of the Christ and the Antichrist simultaneously? These are the energies. These are the mysteries of Saturn. Okay, these are the mysteries of Saturn. So we're going to close out with a section from my book, The Technomancy of Hyperdimensional Warfare. We're going to talk about the heart star, which is known as the engine of will, vision, and hyperdimensional travel. So the heart star is a multidimensional convergence point where will, desire, imagination, and shadow meet. It is not a chakra. The heart star is an interdimensional core, a fusion chamber where the different layers of your being synchronize and emit your true signature in the simulation. So remember, like the heart is a builder frequency. It's not just about Valentine's Day and going on dates and wearing perfume and, collecting shells and stuff. That's not it. Like we're not in that Yahweh frequency, that Enlil, that storm god. You want to be in that storm god frequency, especially if you have those parthiogenic codes, because a storm god, that Old Testament God, can create laws and stuff. You know what I'm saying? But if you can't hold that frequency, well then those laws, those same laws will be lorded over you. The heart star is a multidimensional generator that draws power from three centers of your being: the heart, the core, and the womb. These centers are often treated as separate in spiritual frameworks, but in spiral cosmology, they function as a single triadic circuit, each one feeding the others in a continuous loop of resonance, direction, and creative force. The heart provides the emotional voltage, the ability to feel reality rather than think it, to sense truth through resonance instead of narrative, to translate desire into frequency. The heart is the place where intention gains warmth, shapes creativity, and tone. It is the organ of coherence, the one that determines whether your world is generated from longing, fear, mimicry, or genuine signature. So one code, like let's talk about the codes of the heart. So 8 is definitely a heart-coded frequency. The 8-pointed star of Inanna is an emblem to meditate on your journey to coherence, for sure, and wholeness, remembering your wholeness, remembering your parthiogenic codes. But then there's also the energy of 26, which also goes back to 8. So the frequency of 26 is that Yahweh frequency. It is the frequency of the tetragrammaton. There's also 26 letters in the alphabet as well. So this is where you also get into the energy of your Heka, the power of your words. So you can say words, but if you can speak them from your heart through the power of 26 or that tetragrammaton, according to the way the simulation works, well, then you can add that force, that command to it. That's the frequency of 8, but it's also in 26. So, look out for 26 degrees. Do you have anything in 26 degrees in your chart? That would be a strong Yahweh frequency. Now, the way I think it works, for folks who have been parthiogenic encoded, the simulation is not going to give you, this is my hypothesis. In a simulation that prioritizes division and that is literally banking on your division as a parthiogenic encoded being, they would not make it easy for you to embody the they wouldn't just give you a tetragrammaton. Because if you have the frequency of 26, like especially if you got like Venus at 26 degrees or something like that, you got you came into the incarnation encoded with the tetragrammaton. Like you got Yahweh on deck. And if that is you, lucky you. If you're parthiogenic encoded and you got the frequency of 26 already, good for you. Most likely, no. They might give it to a goddess who's kind of more in there, like, like needing to depend on an XY chromosome and programmed in that way, and maybe more Anunnaki created. They might give it to that being. But a parthiogenic encoded being who's meant to outrank the Anunnaki frequency on the planet, they ain't giving you no 26. That's my particular hypothesis. Okay, I don't think they would make it that easy. Now, what they might do is they might surround you with XY chromosomes that have 26 degrees in their chart, because then there's Yahweh's and Enlil's holding power over you if you don't remember your actual codes. They might do that though. They might do that. So that might be another reason to get into the frequency of 26 as well. So, you would want to focus on looking for celebrities that might, male celebrities that have like a strong 26 degrees in their chart, and studying their archetype. Because if you did that, then you could most definitely learn a lot through that, but you just, be mindful, look for beings who have 20, if you are parthenogenically encoded, and if you're on this path of wholeness, remembering your wholeness, you would most definitely, you just want to peep who around you, what are the degrees of folks around you in your chart. And I do beyond the birth chart reading, so you can take a look in my description. I think I'm actually going to be posting a new offering very soon on astrocartography as well, because a lot of this stuff you can also access certain frequencies through astrocartography. You can activate certain things, and you can also see where patterns are being repeated through astrocartography as well. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be coming soon as well. Okay, so I wanted to talk about that. Like a big heart activation for our parthenogenic being would be going through the frequencies of Yahweh and Enlil, and then the power of 26 as well. All right, let's continue. The core, your inner fire center, converts that emotional voltage into motion. This is the realm of will. Not surface level willpower, but the deeper current that moves through your system as direction, intensity, determination, and capacity. The core takes the emotional truth held in the heart and turns it into a navigational force. This gives you your desire a trajectory. This is your will. Oh my gosh, the war on will. Because, it's really difficult to have your will, like, be in your source of power through your will if you're operating within a state of division. It's so difficult to hold this. Yeah, and then also if you're externalizing power outside of yourself and you're focusing on what other people are telling you you should do and all that stuff, that is a war on your will. Okay, and that's a war on the heart space as well, because it's the heart is a power engine. It is a complex, powerful technology that literally builds and destroys worlds. Okay, it builds and destroys worlds. This is why Yahweh is written on folks' hearts, okay? And Yahweh is a jealous God, and Yahweh is a storm God too. He don't play. Okay, next, the womb, energetic for all genders, provides the dimensional depth required for manifestation. It is the chamber where you hold potential, gestation, density, and the ability to anchor timelines. Without the womb, the heart produces feeling and the core produces motion, but there is nowhere for these forces to land. The womb gives your world weight. It creates the container in which worlds, identities, and possibilities take shape. This is also your Abzu frequency. This is why they reassign the Abzu or the fresh water to, Marduk, and then also Inky. So they reassign the Abzu. Actually, no, they reassign the Abzu to 3 separate patriarchal gods. First, they created a god named Abzu and called him the Abzu, but that was a destiny swap because Namu was the frequency of the Abzu. So first they did that. Then they brought in the Tiamat hijack. Okay, and then they said that Tiamat was, so they divided the goddess through Tiamat. So Tiamat, we talk about how she's a primordial goddess. No, she ain't. She ain't primordial. She was already divided. You can't be primordial and divided. It don't work like that. So they lied to us on Tiamat, and you always know with the T. Okay, T tells you everything. A vertical line and a horizontal line, that ain't no goddess frequency. That ain't no primordial goddess frequency. So anyway, then they did the whole hijack with the Tiamat and Abzu and said that her counterpart she was separated from her counterpart. And that keeps you on like a false twin flame journey with that. Okay? Because now you're like, oh, I need to get back to my Abzu, but you're looking for it outside of yourself. You're usually going to look for it in an XY chromosome. So now you're already being hijacked because you are the Abzu. Then they had Marduk have his own jurisdiction over the waters and flow and fertility. But then somehow Enki started running it as well. And Enki, according to what, the Anunnaki, the folks who like really rock with the Anunnaki, they're going to say that Enki is the good guy. So there's like a hijack on top of a hijack on top of a hijack. Division up top of a division on top of division. So in this Sirius Lionsgate portal, this is a heart star activation. This is where you can activate your lion heart. The lion is also a Yahweh frequency as well. But what they're going to be doing at the same time is they're going to be casting spells of division at the same time. But what do you do? Well, if you can hold the frequency if you can hold the frequency of the energy that they're utilizing to cast those spells of division, you go neutral. And that shit backfires. That's the eye of Yahweh right there. You bring out the eye of Yahweh because he's your son anyway. So why not? He was jealous of you. That's how powerful you are. So you now instead of him being your enemy, he's your tool. And because you, as a parthenogenetic true primordial being, you're going to outrank the beings who are so caught up in keeping the spells of division going because they're jealous. This is where the whole jealousy program comes in too. This is why if you're a parthenogenically encoded being, you will most definitely have those energies of jealousy. But then you can outrank those energies too. If you can embody the frequency of the jealous God, that's going to nullify all. If you can match that frequency, it can't harm you, and that being they won't see a difference because it's like they're seeing you in your primordial power, and then they're jealous of that. And then if they hold the codes of Yahweh, they're able to outrank you in the simulation. Not actually, but in the simulation, they're able to outrank you. Okay, but if you can hold the frequency of Yahweh, you're right with them. Oh, you want a tetragrammaton me? Oh, I got your tetragrammaton. Yep. And I'm a parthenogenetic being. Now what? I went neutral on your ass. We need to get into that frequency, okay? The more the heart core and womb harmonize, the more the heart star emits a coherent pulse. And this pulse is what allows you to perceive what stands between your intention and your world. It illuminates the subtle fractures in your will, the misalignments between desire and structure, the mimic tones that interfere with your resonance. That's that jealous God frequency. That's why you become the jealous God. And then they stop being jealous of you because then they see themselves in you. It creates more peace and harmony. It's actually it's a more, let's see, let me use one of the quotes that I cite. What's my favorite love quote from the big three? I think I'm gonna go with the Torah. I was feeling the Torah quotes because I'm in my upward facing triangle, downward facing triangle, embodying the Christ, Antichrist simultaneously. So let's go with Torah. Judge every person favorably. When you're able to embody that frequency, that same energy that somebody is projecting to cause your destruction, you can judge every person favorably because you covered yourself. You just neutralized all threats. So it's a win-win for everyone. The heart star does not bypass these barriers. It reveals them. Through the heart star, you gain the ability to shift your structural current rather than forcing your way through a path that is not yet aligned. This is why the heart star is essential for world building. Like, hey, Ptah built the world through his heart. But here's the thing about Ptah. He's like a reboot of Enki. He did that through the Abzu. He did that through your parthenogenic code. So peep that. Okay? When the heart star activates, you will no longer operate in isolation. It becomes intertwined with your internal architecture, your kernel, your shadow, and your mythic self. You begin to perceive the true origin of your desires, the ones not the ones taught to you, but the ones embedded into your spiral signature since before incarnation. This is the fire that cannot be extinguished, the desire that does not distort, the will that does not fracture under pressure. Once the heart star stabilizes, your hyperdimensional travel becomes cleaner. Yes, the heart is most certainly a stargate. But if you're in a state of division, you won't see that. And you as a parthiogenic being have the potential, the ability to create your own Merkaba, which is really like that upward facing triangle, downward facing triangle, which is a time travel frequency. And really what that is, it's you getting out of the half circle of the simulation, the Tiamat waters, the salt waters. And now you're going into the Abzu. They don't do time like that. We think that everybody's on the same time. They're not. They're absolutely not. Let's see. Dream shift, vision sharpen, shadow becomes navigable ground instead of a collapsed maze. The fairy realm stops reflecting static and begins transmitting clarity. Oh, that's the other thing, yo. Once you get out of the half circle frequency of, let's just call it the 15-dimensional time matrix. Let's go based on the astrology chart. Okay, so there are 30 degrees in the astrology chart, 0 through 29. Let's say that 0 through 14 is, I'm gonna say 15. Let's go to 15 because at 15 you get to the devil card in tarot. So let's just say until 15 degrees, that's your half circle. So those are your big three religions, all those religions, which whether you're talking about Christianity or Islam or Judaism, they're not going to outright say become the devil or not even worship the devil, but like that's an aspect of your spiritual growth. They'll never tell you that because those religions were meant to keep you in a half circle, in a fragmentation, in a state of division. But if you can integrate those big three, okay, and merge the opposites, well, then you have more capacity to go into the Abzu as well, which is those fresh waters, which are other algorithms. And really, there's just more creational space, more imagination. Then you can start working with the frequencies of like the Fae, the fairies. Not everybody has access to that like that. Okay. Especially if you were like designed to be on like a certain part of the polarity. But that's when you start getting more into the elemental realms and all that stuff, like the magic stuff. And those beings transcend time. And that's what all these like artists, like these famous artists and that's who they work with. They have more of those capacities online. You get to a certain point where you start channeling certain energies as well. And you have the potentials to do that. That's what a lot of the artists do. Okay, let's see. Through the heart star, you see what stands between your intention and its expression. You feel where the structure is out of tune. You recognize when a pathway is yours and when it never was. You perceive where coherence has not yet formed. And most importantly, you gain the ability to change the tone of your architecture. When the heart star awakens, the world becomes responsive. Not because it bends to you, but because you are finally emitting a tone your architecture can sustain. This is coherence. This is the upward facing triangle and the downward facing triangle. This would be Christ, Antichrist simultaneously. Just take a page for the Christians out there. Take a page out of the good book. The dude who wrote your good book, King James. Before he wrote the Bible, he made sure to get a book out on demonology. Remember that, okay? Remember what he said, and look at what he said in his demonology book. Gots to say this one again. He said, the devil can never work except where God permits him. This is a Yahweh frequency. Christ, Antichrist simultaneously. Love is a 4-letter word. It can bless and it can most certainly curse. And you want to hold the frequencies of this frequency of Yahweh, especially if you're parthenogenically coded, or else this energy is coming for you. But if you can absorb this frequency and meet it, you'll have more peace, you'll have more power, And you won't have to, you'll be like, you'll have a covering of blamelessness. You're getting out of like karmic programs with this too. This is where you're transcending like the karma stuff. But if you're too polarized from one side on the other, and you can see that too. You see how these religions, they fight each other. They have all these wars. That's extremely karmic. War is extremely karmic, because not only is there mayhem and violence and killing and all that stuff that's happening in that moment, but then the trauma gets passed down generations, then the whole land gets messed up, and then the trauma's in the land. So that's a whole karmic contract, a binding spell that's happening through the warfare in itself. Okay, but that's because you're not merging. You're choosing a side and you're not merging the opposites. More of us will be expanding in consciousness, and we'll be integrating Christianity, and we'll be integrating Islam, and we'll be integrating Judaism. And this is going to help us with our consciousness evolution. And we're not doing it to say that these religions are the be all and end all. It's a game maker move. It's a covering that you do. And it's a way that you can transcend the binary code of the simulation. This is what love is. Love is a 4-letter word. So that is where we're going to conclude tonight, y'all. It's Saturn time. We're on Saturn time. We're on the ring makers of Saturn time. Okay, we transcend in the rings of Saturn. We are merging the upward facing triangle with the downward facing triangle. We are embracing the Christ, and we are also becoming like what they refer to in the Bible as the sons of disobedience. And we are also rocking with the princes, what do they call it? The prince of power of the air. Yep. King James wrote about it. He wrote about the prince of power in the air in both his demonology book as well as his King James book. Obviously, it's important to him. He said the devil cannot work where God does not allow him. He told y'all that the devil and God work hand in hand. They gave you the tools. They just divided it to make it confusing. Okay, so that's where we're going to end it for tonight. Sending y'all lots of love. Love being a 4-letter word. Okay, shouts out to Yahweh, the jealous God. This one goes out to you. All right.